So I've had these samples sitting around for a little while now, and the plan initially was, take notes, put them right here, and then read off them while I describe what's going on to you. And then I realized, well, I've never really had a Japanese rum before. Certainly one not like this. So it might be fun if I did these no-note style. Just poured them, kind of shot from the hip. Tell you what I think. All right, so what is the story behind these? So you do find cane spirits in Japan, particularly the kokuto, shochu, which is a koji-produced spirit, usually distilled to, or single distilled to low ABV. This is not that. This is a full-blown rum, but it is still made from kokuto. This is from, let me finish pouring these and I will be able to speak with more, with less distraction. Jesus. These are very aromatic already. Okay, so here's the deal. Amagi, from the Shinozaki Distillery in Fukuoka, basically kind of towards the middle of Kyushu, which is shochu central, basically. This is where you find a huge amount of koji-based spirits being produced in Japan. And Shinozaki here at both a brewery and a distillery has been making sake since like a century or so, a couple of centuries maybe. Basically this was their first attempt at rum. They distilled this stuff from kokuto, which is this kind of very flavorful, almost smoky black sugar you see particularly made in Okinawa. They took that, they gave it something like a 15-day open vat fermentation, which is very serious. And they distilled it, they put it into virgin American oak casks, which is a little bit scary to me. And then they just set it up in their warehouse, basically unprotected from the elements, for almost 10 years. These are almost 10 years old, but they only make it to 9. 8 casks were produced in total, and so far as I can tell, they never did it again. So 4 of those casks made to the U.S. K&L, along with a couple of other retailers, got a hold of these, and that is what you see on the shelves. That's basically what these are. And that's all I got to tell you about what these are. I don't know if koji was used in the production of these. It wasn't stated on the importer's website, so I don't think it is. But I don't really know. Again, I have no point of reference for this style at all, aside from kokuto shochu, which is an entirely different beast. All right, let's. But I'm going to taste these for you, smell and taste, and give you some notes and give you a score. All right, I'm doing these in increasing order of alcoholic strength. This is cask number 3752 at 62.1% alcohol. Stick our nose in. Oh, hello. Okay, I don't know what I was expecting from these. Part of me was expecting something more savory, like kokuto shochu tends to be. But that's from the koji mold, and I don't think koji went into this. So is it going to be more like a heavily American oaked rum agricole or something that basically presents like bourbon? I was kind of leaning in that direction. This is not what I was expecting. This smells like pancake syrup. The best pancake syrup in the world. And a big old cup of coffee on the side. Or even like almost a coffee liqueur kind of. Like, there's a little Mr. Black in this. But it's also quite smoky. You know what this smells like? There is kind of this overt desserty quality, but it smells like, you had one guy who was a huge Diplomatico fan, right? Who really love that sort of decadent Latin, if for lack of a better word, style of rum, and someone else who's more of a, I was going to say Foursquare, but that's not right. Almost more like an old school Guyana-driven Navy blend style guy. And these two get in a fight, but at the end of the fight, they learn to like each other. They become friends, and they start their own distillery. That's what this smells like. Like there is such a just a decadent, syrupy, brown sugary thing to this, but there is depth as well if you're if you pay attention to it. A little black olive and that kind of subtle campfirey character. There's some tobacco, almost so like black Cavendish, but also just, I don't know, straight up, Carolina Brightleaf or something in there. A little bit of like craft cola. It's like cola that's really kind of cola forward, if that makes sense. A lot of coffee notes happening here. A little dash of minerality, like some rocks and a touch of seawater. But yeah, really, this smells a lot like a dessert rum to me. And in my brain, I'm having to remind myself this is a craft product, and it's not going to be like, a sugar bomb when you drink it. Interesting. Not at all was what I was expecting from this. Not at all. All right, let's see what happens on the palate. Yeah, continues on that same kind of character on the palate. Very much like a Guyana-driven Navy blend meets the decadence of a Diplomatico, but without that sort of overt, sugary, syrupy, cloying thing on the back end. It's very, very desserty, but there isn't actual sugar here, if that makes sense. Pancake syrup? Yes. Coffee? All the coffee. Fresh coffee grinds. Used coffee grinds. Sumatra. Some Guatemalan coffee in there as well. Coffee liqueur, the Mr. Black thing again. Just lots and lots and lots of different coffees. Black pepper, most certainly. That kind of campfirey thing. S'mores. Did I not say s'mores on the nose? This is full of s'mores. I'm kind of fascinated by this. Form-wise, there's some trouble. Like it arrives fine, but the finish kind of stops halfway through my mouth. It's all in the front. The actual finish holds on for quite a long time with this kind of, bittersweet, smoky, desserty thing, which I think would actually hit a lot of palates very well. But there's less, I don't know, depth and complexity to this than I would have expected from something aging for almost 10 years in the, exposed to the elements in southern Japan. Interesting. I'm puzzled. It's something I like. I feel like everyone could enjoy this, and I don't know. Like in my shop, these things are still stuck on the shelves. Like people aren't really buying them aggressively, but I mean they're Japanese spirits and they're delicious. These are not, aside from the cask strength things, these are not really. This one, at least, that I've tried so far is not particularly challenging. to one's palate. So far, that is not to insult it or anything. It's just to say it's from a country that's blazing hot in terms of demand right now, and is accessible, and I don't know why these things still exist on the shelves. All right, am I blabbing about 37.52? Let's see what 30.96 can do. Let's add some water to this first one. 3. It's going to take at least 4, probably 5. So what I'm really hoping the water does is kind of improve the form of this rum. But we shall see. All right, that's a hair less than 5. Let's see what happens. That seems like enough. Ooh. It actually does get a little bit sweeter. Ooh. Come back to that. Interesting. Okay. 30.96. Bottled at 64.2% alcohol. A little bit more subdued on the nose. Similar sets of notes. The coffee is still ruling. And it's different kinds of coffee. Grinds, Sumatra, Costa Rican. There's still a little bit of pancake syrup, and the kind of cola, the craft cola thing. But I'm getting a kind of tree bark element to this, which I wasn't really getting in the previous one. Or rather, maybe like a birch beer kind of thing happening. The campfire note is still there, but this time it's bringing more kind of overt notes of twigs and, just bark, leaves. It's a little bit more savory without being umami, if that makes sense. It's more subtle than the previous one. It's not as kind of in your face, but it's bringing a few more notes to the table. I'm not necessarily sure I like it more. Let's see what happens. On the palate. So in terms of form, this is actually very similar. It arrives kind of sweet and smoky, and the finish hangs on, but it's all in the front of my mouth. There's really nothing happening at my molars on back, which is a little bit concerning, again, for something that is pushing 10 years old. Let me try this again. Similar story to the nose. Similar to the previous one, but bringing more kind of burned wood kind of stuff. Burned bark, burned twigs alongside the pancake syrup, minerality, olives. What else did I say? The coffee, all the coffee, the s'mores, all that stuff from before. Feels like it's kind of at the same level, maybe a little bit more nerdy, a little bit more hardcore, but it still it's still mainly riding on that kind of delicious factor, which, again, I wasn't expecting from these. Don't know what to say about that. If you're a fan of Navy-style Guyana-based rums, the Pussers, for example, this may be worth a look. If you are a Foursquare fan, you like the wood, but you also like serious rum character, this may be worth a look. If you like Diplomatico and stuff, you're looking for something a little bit less cloying, this is definitely worth a look. And if you were a fan of anything coming from Japan, and you're willing to pay the money for it, and you just want something delicious under that mark, this is worth a look. Add some water. We'll come back to it. 4 and 5. Ooh. This next one, 3762, to my eyes appears to be the darkest of the bunch. Interesting. Okay, 3762. This is 64.4% ABV. You know, honestly, I could kind of repeat most of the same notes. It's kind of between 1 and 2, or the first and second glasses, honestly. So I'm getting a lot of pancake syrup and lots and lots and lots of coffee. But, you know, I'm also getting a fair amount of the tree bark, the birch beer, the twigs, the leaves, campfire smoke, s'mores. I'm struggling to think of new notes for these. Okay, this might be, as much as I sound like I'm not super duper excited, this might actually be the most balanced of these on the nose so far. It's desserty, but not too desserty. It's tree barky, but not too tree barky. I'm enjoying this. Let's see what happens on the palate. There we go. And the palate is where the big difference is, because this thing has just a little bit better form so far than the previous two. Arrived similarly, but on the mid palate and the development into the finish, like this is pushing way back into the back of my mouth. Even it kind of has a fun herbal cooling effect on the back end. Yeah, bittersweet, sweet, smoky, but there's this little twinge of like basil, like almost a singed basil sort of note happening, which is kicking this up a notch for me, past the previous two. Still very dominated by the smoke, the different tobaccos, definitely the Cavendish, the Virginias are in the house. A little burley too. The s'mores, the cola, touch of the birch beer. The form on this just feels more interesting right now. We'll see what happens when I add water. These are just so desserty and yeah, the pancake syrup thing is just what's throwing me off. I did not see that coming when I poured these. I should have seen the coffee thing coming at least. Give this hair better perspective score. Okay, and a couple squirts of water. We'll come back to it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Double pot distilled, did I mention? These are all double pot distilled. Okay, moving on to our last contestant. Wait, let me see if I add enough water to this. Good to go. sorry, our last contestant, cask 3098 at a whopping 64.6% alcohol by volume. Let's see what's going on in the nose. Initially a little more vague on the nose than the others. But at the same time, I'm getting some notes I wasn't getting in the other. Like there's some orange peel coming out. Interesting. And beyond that, black pepper, pancake syrup, coffee, campfire, all that stuff. But more restrained. It's reminding me of the second glass, the 3096, which makes sense. I guess these are sister casks. So yeah, it's taking the woody aspect of 3096, and instead I'm getting more of that, of a kind of, I don't know, toasted citrus peel kind of thing. Feels a little lighter on its feet. Feels a little bit like someone, you know, vatted a little aged agricole into this. Interesting. Mostly sharing the same notes as the last few, but that freshness is kind of attractive to me. Let's see what happens on the palate. Okay. So this is one where, first of all, I'll say the alcohol nip is coming out on this more than the others. This feels very, well, there's a pepperiness which goes beyond the alcohol, but a lot of that is the alcohol. So I'm curious to see what this does with water. It's interesting. The form is more like the first two. It kind of has a good arrival, nice development, but it never really goes past my molars. Kind of fades away as it goes into the back of my mouth. But there's it feels like there's more layers going on in the front end of this. Yeah, you're interrupting the maple syrupy kind of character and the barky character and the coffee and the s'mores and all that with a little shot of orange peel and a lot more pepper actually than before. And it's not just pepper, it's actually, there's what is that? Oh, no, it's the kind of toasted basil note I was getting in the previous glass. That's here along for the ride with the orange. And it works. And you know, now that I'm sipping more of this, the form is improving as well. It's starting to push further back in my mouth. It's starting to behave more like 3762. Wow. So similar to the others, but maybe feels like it has a little bit more depth to it. It is kind of my favorite in the running so far. All right, let's add some water, see what happens. 2, 3, 4. So my daughter is staying home from school today because she has a little bit of fever. She's watching Paw Patrol. Loves Everest. She did love Sky for a while. I'm much happier with the Everest love. It's that dad lifestyle. Okay. Again, interesting lineup. Not what I was expecting, but Interesting lineup. And again, I can see, even without trying these with water, I can tell you these will hit a lot of palates. If you are a fan of wood-driven spirits, especially when they have a little bit of desserty side, and you don't mind paying a premium for stuff from Japan, these are worth a look. These are probably going to be worth a grab. All right, but let's get some further notes on the table here. Back to 37.52, which again was originally the lowest ABV of the bunch. On the nose. And it is still the most, pancake syrupy of the bunch. It's getting some maple syrupy things, actually, too. There's something almost a lime, touch of lime in there now, which I appreciate. It was not a ton of development. It's kind of the same set of notes as before, which is okay. I mean, it was delicious before, and it smells delicious now. On the palate, with water, it's kind of shoots and ladders. On the one hand, this has done what I was hoping it would do, which is to, with water, improve its mouthfeel. This is now penetrating well back into my throat with its delicious smoky s'mores and coffee kind of thing. But the other side to that is the sweetness of this has also come out. I don't think this is actually dosed or anything. I'm not going to say dosed anymore on this channel. Dosed is not the right word. I don't think there's any actual added sugar to this. But man, it is showing up as desserty. It presents sweet. It's nice. It's the little details that are winning me over. The little minerality, that touch of lime there, more present on the nose than on the palate. Tough to score. I don't want to go crazy on this, but I can't crash it either. I'm going to go 84 plus out of 100. But that's not the highest score I've ever given, but keep in mind the context of this. If you have a sweet tooth and you like stuff from Japan, you can still totally grab this and enjoy it. Moving on. Cask 3096, now with water. This was the one I found most kind of tree barky and woody from before. But also the most closed on the nose, and it still kind of is. Interesting. It's still tree barky, but now the orange thing, I was getting on, what was it, this fourth glass. That orange thing is starting to show up in the nose. Like just smoky elements, bark. Like Starbucks coffee. And some rocks. The rocks are very nice. That's it. Not a ton of development on this, but that's okay. On the palate. Interesting. So again, the sweetness kind of comes out a little bit more on this, which does a nice job of kind of balancing off the tree barky elements. But the form doesn't improve as much as on the first glass. This is still, there was no problem with the finish before. It was hanging around very nicely in the front of my mouth. But it never really went back beyond that to the back of my mouth. And this is not doing that either. I'm pretty sure I gave enough water to this. It doesn't feel nippy or anything. But yeah, it's not doing what I was hoping it would do in the same way that the first glass did. Tricky. It's not as sort of overtly desserty as the first rum, the 3752. So for people who want to be a little bit more hardcore, I think this 3096 would still be a better choice. But I don't necessarily think it's better just because with water it doesn't kind of step up in the same way that the first cast does. So flat 84 for the 3096. Moving on to the 3762, which I recall being kind of like a combination and slightly better version of these first two. Let's see what happens. On the nose, I'm still getting that same sense. There's maple syrup, there's kind of maple syrup stuff and pancake syrup stuff going on, but it's balanced off by the woody, smoky, s'moresy thing. Some lime developing on this one too, which makes sense considering this and the first glass were sister casks. And the rocks. I like the rocks. Let's see what's happening on the palate. On the palate, it behaves more like the first glass, 3752, than the second glass. The mouthfeel improves. The development improves. Again, this is penetrating way back into my throat now, which is nice. And it is offering a little bit of minerality that I wasn't getting from a little bit of a savory touch that I wasn't getting from that first glass. Someone out there watching is a coffee maniac, and they will absolutely love, well, any of these, but this one in particular. This is worth a grab for the coffee nuts out there. 3762, I'm going to give this no plus. I'm just going to give it a flat 85. Flat 85. It didn't actually improve as much as the first glass did, but it didn't need to, if that makes sense. Nice rum. Okay. Finally, this was the one that was, hottest, but also led for me in the first round. 3098. Here we go on the nose. Yeah, this is the one that for me smells the most like a traditional Caribbean style rum. If you handed this to me and told me it was from Barbados, I would believe you. There's lots of wood and lots of coffee. And even some vanilla creeping through. But it's balanced off by the citrus, all that stuff. The pepper, the slight leafiness of this, the kind of the basil note. Okay. I mean, it was my favorite on the nose before, and it kind of still is. On the palate, dang it. If you told me before I started recording this that I would give my highest score to the most traditional rum here, I would be really annoyed with you. Because I would want to pick the one that was crazy and bonkers and most out there. In a way that this is. This is the most herbaceous and kind of bright and sour and lifted and of the bunch. But that just makes it seem more like something from the Caribbean. Not a whole lot of development on this, but the orange peel is singing. The smoke and the tobacco, the minerality, that little hint of dessertiness which came from the previous, which is like the previous three, are perfectly balanced. Oh, yeah, that's really annoying. It's the one that reminds me of a quote-unquote English-style rum that I'm going to give the highest score to. I think this is an 87-point rum. 87 points. For me, considerably better than the previous three. But again, that's just kind of my palate, right? If you love a desserty style, but you don't want actual sugar, take a look at these first three. That being said, you know, this 3098, this is the one I would be going home with, if that makes sense. Yeah, so fun lineup. Not at all what I thought I would be saying here. All right, 3752, 84 plus out of 100. 3096, 84 points out of 100. 3762, 85 points out of 100. And Cask 3098 takes the W with 87 points out of 100. Thanks for watching. Hope this was entertaining. Grab the 3098 if it's out there at a reasonable price and still on the shelf. Bye.